Record to the class. Everybody okay with being with us recording it? Just for people that miss it.
Sure.
Thank you. And Joanna, I'm working on that co-host thing. Goodness. We have a big crowd. More. All right, Joanna, you should be a co-host now. All right, we're ready. Great. Great crowd this morning. Lots of Main Street directors, lots of affiliate programs, and a number of advisory council members, as well as MDF staff here. So let's see. I don't want to do long introductions, but I think I'm going to just quickly go around the room because there are so many of you here this morning, which is great. So why don't you just say your name and who you are, and I'll start with Rob.
Rob Biggs, Saco Main Street, Executive Director.
Great. And Nat.
Nat Blackford, I'm the Main Street Fellow for the Main Downtown Center.
And Cara.
I'm Cara Romano, Director of Heart of Ellsworth.
Melissa.
Melissa Lindley, Director of Gardner Main Street.
And David.
Dave Gogel, Director, Rockland Main Street.
And Terry Ann.
Terry Ann Holden, a director on Main Street and work with CDBG.
Great. Haley.
Haley Jaramillo with Maine DOT. I'm the regional planner and I'm an advisory council member.
Thanks. Jane.
Main Street Bath, and I'm co-chair of the Maine Downtown Center's Advisory Council.
And Jan.
Good morning, all. I'm a senior leader at MDF, and I work with primarily our leadership development programs as well as our workforce and education.
Great. And Joanna.
Hi, I'm Joanna Crisp with the Maine Downtown Center.
And Nancy.
Hi, Nancy Ketch with the Town of Holton.
And Scott.
Right.
Scott Burke, President of Norway Downtown and MDC Advisory Council member.
Great. And Bill King.
Yeah, I'm on the advisory council long-term, and Main Street Bath been involved with at least 2 or 3 committees for years.
Great. And Deb King.
No relation. I'm the Executive Director of Brunswick Downtown Association.
And Rosie.
Hi, I'm Rosie Venata-Stein, Senior Team Leader of Economic and Community Development at the Maine Development Foundation.
And Amanda.
Main Street Bath Director. I also want to point out that there's another King in this kind of world, Corey King.
Corey King, yeah.
So many Kings.
It's true. There are a lot of Kings in Main Street. Michael Hall.
Michael Hall, Director for Augusta Downtown Alliance.
And Christina.
Director for Main Street, Skowhegan.
And Adam, who just joined us.
Hi all, Adam Dirk over at MDF. It's a program director.
Great, thanks. So that's the crowd here this morning. Thanks for everybody coming. I did put in the chat, I hope you saw it, the release link to Measures of Growth, which was released Tuesday morning. And I have not read it in its full form yet, but they really tried to respond to a number of issues related to COVID in the last year. And I highly recommend that you take a look at it and share it with your boards and your committees. Reminder. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying there was a cool picture of Delilah in there.
Oh, you're right. There was a picture of Delilah. And reminder on your calendars, January 28th is our MDC Coffee and Awards, amazing keynote speaker. And we had our award selection committee meet right after Thanksgiving. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Jane. And I'm trying to think Abby Levin and Matt Collins. And it was really competitive, but we're going to keep it a surprise until January 28th. So hope you all can make it. Deb, did you have a question?
Once again, our annual meeting is always scheduled for the last Thursday of the month in January, so I won't be able to make it.
Oh, gosh, that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know how that happens, Deb. I feel like whenever we schedule an event, it is the wrong timing. And your annual meeting's in the morning as well?
8 to 9, virtual.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. And yes, Joanna, we will still, we are still sending out a little registration surprise to everybody, and we'll make sure that Deb gets one. So this morning we have two guests here, or people who are going to talk about some important content for you, and then we'll open it up for discussion. I have Jan Kearse, who's going to talk about our leadership cohort coming up in 2021, and see whether any of your communities, your main streets might make sense to participate. And then Nat is going to talk about our program where we are going to loan Nat out to you for AmeriCorps Fellows projects for 2 to 6 weeks, and what that process is going to look like. So I'm going to pass it to Jan next, because Jan has another commitment, and I wanted to do that. So Jan, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. It's really good to see you here this morning. We've all been through a lot this year, and it's going to come to a close soon. And hopefully those vaccines will be coming out, and folks will be a little more ready to get out and do what they need to do on main streets. You may have already heard that we have moved toward virtual models for our leadership development this year. Both Leadership Maine and ICL, which Anne has helped to provide scholarships for in the past, have been postponed until the fall of next year. And so even though people may be sick of Zoom, we have still decided to move forward with virtual programs. And some that I think will be helpful for you all, and we'll talk at the end about what kind of scholarship opportunities there are as well. We have a full slate of programs. We try to pick something for everyone's interest. One of them is Women Transforming Leadership. And that doesn't mean that men can't come, by the way. It just means that there'll be speakers who are women, and they are speakers who are doing really interesting things in their community or in the world. And the next one coming up is on December 17th with Roz Savage. And Roz Savage is a around the world rower. She is a Guinness Award record holder, Nat Geographic explorer. And she's also a leadership coach and has an advanced degree in feminist leadership. So that should be an interesting one. And then in 2021, we'll have a group of people who are really focused on community dialogues. As you know, that we are interested in that as well. And Joe has been doing a lot of work in different communities on setting up those dialogue. And this group coming in will be more for years. They've been doing it 20, 30 years, and they want to share their story and the difference you can make of dialogue. And that's just a kind of scratching the surface in terms of who might come into that program. People don't have to come to them all. You can just sign up for one of them at a time. And then we have what you've heard most about thus far is a cohort class called Leading Through Uncertainty. It's 8 3-hour sessions. And we were asked to deliver that program to help people to think about, what does it mean to be a leader in these times when you don't know the answers, when it's really hard, when the world is changing around you and you just want it to stop and get back to the way it was. And so that's 8 sessions starting in January that'll wrap up in June. And they're 3 hours each. They're very engaging. We do not do webinars. I'm not a fan of one-way communication, so everything is designed in Zoom, and it includes lots of different breakouts and opportunities for people to engage and talk to each other. We think that's one of the best ways to get through these times. You all have been in your communities tackling challenges, and you've come up with new ideas and innovations, and this is an opportunity as well to share those with others who are in that program. We are trying to recruit for that program in groups where possible. So like you'd have 2 or 3 from a community who could come and learn and take back learnings to the community. So we invite you to think about that. And then beyond those 2 programs, we do have Innovating for Growth as a series. Again, pick one or all. It's a series that's focused more on innovations in Maine and what's happening in different sectors and how it's happening and who's leading it. And then the last one is more focused on advancing equity. And what are we doing in our communities to be able to say to ourselves, hold our heads up high, saying that we are really trying to make a change as we think about how people are treated differently based on the color of their skin. So those are the 4 key ones that are coming out, or rolling out, I should say. You are invited, and here's the really sweet thing that just happened. We had a donor who normally gives to Leadership Maine and IRCL scholarships in particular. That donor has switched that total gift to funding programs for Lead Now and for people who work in municipalities. So we have $5,000 in that pot. And then Anne usually, where's Anne? Anne usually has some dollars in her pot that she gives away to help support people for Leadership Maine, that she's going to contribute to this as well. Anne, do you want to say anything about that?
No, I mean, we just really do want to encourage, if it makes sense for one of our Main Streets or affiliates to think about leadership development. And that's why I budget for that every year. So it will be added to the pot. And I don't know where the number landed. It's another 2,000 or 3,000, I think, Jan.
Okay, so I think the invitation that has been passed along previously is that one where if you want to send 3 people to Leading Through Uncertainty, we'll be able to cover that with scholarship. But we also want to pass along to you the opportunity to attend. If you just want to go to 1 3-hour session, we will provide scholarship for that as well. So that's all on the web right now on MDF Lead Now. And you can see what's coming up and what you'd like to participate in. If you want to just see what it's like, again, there's one coming up on Thursday morning from 9 to 12, and that's the one that's more focused on ways to transform people's leadership ways and thinking. So come to that one if you'd like, and all you have to do is sign up, and then put at the bottom, there's a place where you can indicate that it's a MD scholarship. Any questions about any of that?
It might be a great way to kind of kick off your 2021 and ground your board or community volunteers in, a learning opportunity together. So think about it that way. And yes, ask Jan any questions, because she has really worked very hard on developing the content and bringing in the speakers and trainers.
Thank you, Anne. And one other thing I'll just highlight for the Women Transforming Leadership series, we're focusing on people from away. I mean, most of the time, our programs, your programs, probably focus on people who live in Maine as the speakers. We wanted to do a mix this year. So in this particular series, it will be speakers from away. So we have people from the UK and Canada and other parts of the country, so in the world. So think about that. And again, if you have any questions, you can always email me at jkearce, Kearce. I'll put it in the chat at mdf.org. If you're trying to figure out what's right for you, given where you are and what you want to do, I'll be happy to help you think more about that. Is that right?
Yeah, and we do have so many people this morning. I'm toggling between pages. I don't want to miss someone who has a question. So just madly wave. Okay, I'm not seeing any, Jan, at this point. And of course, you can always put it in the chat. Thank you, Jan, for sharing these programs with everybody. And we will see if we can get a community to attend.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the only other thing I'll say is if you are interested, you should probably think about it soon. While we have scholarship dollars, we are opening that up to all of the downtown centers, communities that are both Main Streets and affiliates. And then if that closes down, we'll open it up to the 4 main communities if we don't have enough interest in this particular group. And then we'll move on from there to the other municipalities. So.
And Jan, is it okay to share that one of the groups that had signed up as a group, is it Appalachian Mountain Club that's sending a group?
We have 5 people from the Appalachian Mountain Club, which is great. They basically are sending all the directors from their sites.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting way to think about leadership learning for me, is attending with a group. from your organization together. I just think it creates, it's more multi-dimensional, I guess, I think, than sometimes when you do it by yourself, but when you come and you're thinking about leadership within your organization or your community. So,
Yeah.
Deb?
All right.
Yeah, thank you. Jan, how much does it cost?
Well, since we have the scholarship money for you, it cost.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing opportunity.
Yeah. And what we have the Al Curran Scholarship. I don't know if you all know Woodard and Curran or not, but they created an Al Curran Scholarship for the founder of that organization. And all of their work, for the most part, is within municipalities, and they strongly believe in investing in leadership in those communities.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Jan. And I think you have a time crunch, so I don't want to hold you up, but thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Good to see you all this morning. Keep up the good work as best as you can do. Thanks a lot. Have a good holidays, no matter when they started, and be safe. Thank you.
Great. Bye, Jan.
Bye-bye.
So now I'd like to turn it over to Nat and Joanna, who I think Nat is, as you know, our Main Street Fellow at the Main Downtown Center. And he is going to be talking about, I kind of refer to it as like the loaned executive program through United Way. I don't know if you've heard of that, but this is our like loaned Main Street Fellow who can come to any of your communities for a short-term project. And I will turn it over to Nat to explain how he is developing this process and the timeline.
Great. Anne, can you see the screen that I shared? Can
I
everyone see
sure,
that?
yep, you're good, Nat.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. We just wanted to get a chance to put this in front of you. This is our draft kind of community projects RFP. So this is still a work in progress, but we really wanted to get your feedback to make sure that the process that we end up with is practical, is easy, and works for you. So kind of the introduction is that you know, the Downtown Center Fellow will be available to Main Street and affiliate communities for short projects that increase local resilience, build social capital, advance equity, and create more welcoming communities. Kind of the project goals are to give Main Streets and affiliates without a dedicated fellow a chance to directly benefit from the Main Street Fellows program. So I'm doing a fair bit of work kind of at the statewide level that'll benefit everyone, but this is kind of a chance for you to kind of get the direct benefits of having a fellow. And it also gives me a chance to get out into the community, which I'm looking forward to. And then finally, kind of advancing those 4 principles of the Main Street Fellows program. So kind of local resilience, social capital, advancing equity, and creating more welcoming communities. So these are kind of some of the example projects that we've been thinking about. So kind of the one might be a downtown business survey to inform strategic planning. So, you know, what do businesses need from your organization? How can we, you know, work with the downtown businesses to create a more kind of equitable, inclusive, welcoming Main Street? You know, another approach could be to replicate a model or approach from another community to help accomplish a specific set of goals. Maybe you've heard of a project that another community has done that you think would be a really good fit for your community, but you just need a little extra capacity to help try and bring it to your town. And so that could be a project that we could try and replicate in your community. Could also be kind of doing research kind of in the community and coming up with a proposal for how to use a space. You know, how do we make, you know, this part of the downtown more welcoming place? Or how do we make sure that people feel included? How do we create a spot that increases the resilience of the community? It could be facilitating a community conversation on a particular issue. You know, I'm sure you all will have lots of ideas on that. It could be kind of community asset mapping to kind of figure out what the different assets that your community has. What different assets your community has, and how those can kind of be used to support development efforts. You know, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What makes your community distinctive, and how can those be leveraged? Or it could be support around kind of a specific event, you know, outreach, programming, etc. Any kind of questions on those? I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, but if you have questions, don't hesitate to speak up. Any questions so far?
You can also put them in the chat.
Yes.
Yep. Great. I don't see any, Nat.
Okay, great. Kind of what can the fellow, this kind of opportunity provide? What we're currently thinking about is some sort of consultation during the application process. So kind of, I can help you put together an application, and we can kind of workshop it to make sure that it kind of fits the needs of the program, and fits the needs of your community. Then kind of we're looking at 2 to 6 weeks in terms of kind of project length. So that's the amount of kind of time and effort. And then some sort of debrief after the project has ended. You know, how well do we feel like the project worked? How well do we feel like the process of having a fellow in your community worked? How, you know, just kind of debrief the whole thing so that we can, hopefully when there's a downtown center fellow next year and they're doing something similar, you can make the process even better. And then just some kind of additional context on the types of activities. So it could be local research and analysis, communications, coordinating, etc. We're trying to leave it pretty open-ended because we really want to get projects that kind of are coming from the community and that the community is invested in. Host site and project eligibility. The current way we're thinking about this is it's open to Main Street and affiliates who don't already have a Main Street fellow. So trying to open it up to communities that weren't able to get a Main Street fellow through that RFP. And the requirements we're looking at are kind of a defined beginning and end, a defined community point person for me to work with, and if it's the type of project that would need it, some sort of implementation team, an identified next step. And that's a pretty big one. We want to make sure that these projects don't just end after 6 weeks, but that they have some sort of bigger impact or tie into some sort of larger strategy in the community. So maybe one of the community's transformational strategies, etc. You need to have a reasonable time frame, and then also kind of the funding if needed to support the proposed projects. One of the things that we can't do as AmeriCorps volunteers is engage in fundraising. So there would also need to be funding to do kind of projects, the proposed projects. Any questions after that? I'm not hearing any, so I'll
Yep, not seeing any.
Okay. How to apply? The way we're currently thinking about this is kind of emailing a form out to all the Main Streets and affiliates with kind of the following prompts. So, you know, what's the project you want to undertake? How does it advance kind of one of the 4 principles of the Main Street Fellows Program? What would the fellows' roles and responsibilities be? How is it going to move the community forward? Who are the stakeholders and how will they be involved? And then kind of who will the community point person be and how much time, you know, do they have to devote to the project? And then, as I said earlier, you know, I'll be available to kind of work with people to develop proposals. Finally, kind of the time frame is we're looking to kind of get this RFP issued in early January, but we're not quite sure exactly how we're going to go about the application process. Kind of one option would be kind of just rolling admissions. So just as people come up with projects and submit them, we can kind of review them and see whether they're a good fit or work on them a little bit and hopefully, you know, get them implemented. And then kind of as projects come up, people can continue to submit them. Or we could do kind of a few different rounds of applications, maybe, one in February, one in April.
Hey, come here.
And the advantage of that would be that maybe that there's some sort of hard deadline to work towards. But we'd really be interested in your feedback on kind of this time frame piece of it and the whole presentation and the whole kind of process that we've been sketching out. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, I would love to hear it because we want to make sure that this process really works for you.
Great, thanks, Nat. You want to stop sharing the screen and we'll see what kind of questions people have.
Yeah, there we go.
Great. What are you thinking of? Are you thinking of projects that might work? Augusta, Brunswick, you have ideas? Bath, those of you that don't have those AmeriCorps, certainly Ellsworth and Holton and Norway. We'd love to have our affiliates get to take care of this, take advantage of this as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I come up with a project and have you here for 2 to 6 weeks, do I pay you?
No.
Or is that covered under MDF for Main
That's-
Downtown Center?
Yeah, you do not pay for Nat's time.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to have any direct costs, Deb, associated with the project that you would be responsible for. So it's basically labor. Really wonderful labor.
Is the concept that Nat would be physically here, or is this something that could be a remote project?
I think I think it's an unknown. I mean, at this point, I think we're all planning for remote, Cara, but if it were to carry into next summer, or that was the time frame you were shooting for, then maybe it could be in person.
Yeah, we have a project coming up that I think that this is a good fit for, but the project is slated to start in January.
So
but
probably remote.
Well, yeah, and the whole project is remote at this point. It's a feasibility study. So.
Other questions? Deb?
Just tossing this out, is something like market gap analysis along the lines of something the Nat that you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, I don't have too much familiarity with that, but I am more than interested in diving into different types of analyses and kind of working on those. Yeah.
Cool. So if it's remote, we would just have to make sure that you were in contact with the right players in the game in terms of working with the town and working with us and that sort of thing. Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
exactly.
Yeah, and I do think that it's worth considering even in a safe way. Like I'm sure Nat would love to walk your main street wearing his mask at a certain point, right? Because it's really going to give you a holistic feeling for the downtown core, Nat, and also the community. So I think, I could see him getting in his car to do that anyway.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to a mix of in-person and remote. I think we'll just have to, as everyone is this year, just keep on paying attention to what's going on with the pandemic and kind of being mindful of that.
Yeah. I guess I was wondering about the housing aspect of it. If you're in the community, do we find you a place to stay or whatever? But obviously if you're working remote, you're going to be wherever you are.
Well, Nat lives in Edgecombe, so that is commutable to many of you, but not all of you, right? So we'd have to figure out if it were a project in Holton. And Joanna, have we talked about housing if it's not commutable yet?
I think the conversation so far has pretty much covered it. We don't know if it's an on-site project and it's safe for him to be on site and there are housing options available. I think that would be great, but that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, thanks. Other questions, concerns, ideas?
Do people feel like the rolling admissions would be better or the kind of different rounds? second.
Amanda.
Hey, I've got a question. Does it have to be a brand new project, or can it be something that exists that we've always needed just a little bit extra help with? So I'm thinking about Heritage Days. But I don't know if that qualifies because it doesn't sound like a specific.
I think you could define it to have a specific goal and start and end date, Amanda, a specific body of work within Heritage Days, and I think that would be totally fine.
Yeah, I can see a definite need
Adam
for
and
that.
Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see any problem with that.
Well, the other thing is Heritage Days is still going to look different
True.
this year, so we might need that extra strategy.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things we're hoping that this kind of process of me being available to kind of help workshop proposals, we can, craft something that will work. That's kind of the hope.
Adam, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, just from the AmeriCorps regulation perspective, the item that comes up here is that it cannot not replace staff. So either staff that was recently let go or that would otherwise be hired. And Nat can talk about that in detail if you wanted to put in a proposal and make sure we were following the rules there.
Thanks, Adam. So
I want
generally,
to answer.
oh yeah, Jane. go
Okay.
ahead.
I want to answer Nat's question, or try anyway. You asked about which type of application timetable would work best. I would think rolling applications are confusing and will, muddy the water. So my preference would be that you have certain dates by which they have to apply. Thank you. Right.
Thanks, Jane. Other comments? Joanna, did you have polls that you wanted to do, or I don't want to not link you in?
I do, and I think, but I wanted to wait until all the conversation and questions had been had and answered. I will just say with the two options for application deadlines, it really is whatever works best for this group. So the question is really, is it better for you to have deadlines to work towards, if there were kind of 3 maybe throughout the spring and early summer, or does it work better for your workflow to have it be on a rolling basis? So I don't have a poll about that, but I think it would be helpful to maybe see thumbs around rolling. Is rolling a preference over set deadlines? Thumbs up for rolling. Okay, so set deadlines, thumbs up for set deadlines. That's
what
really
I'm
helpful.
seeing.
Thank you.
Great. I hope it's exciting to you guys. It's one of the components of this AmeriCorps program with Nat being at MDC that I think our whole team was really excited about. Because yes, we are loving having him and have specific things he's working on, but to be able to share the Nat wealth, if you will, and put him in your communities for some project that you might never have gotten to, or you need a little extra help on. Really, to me, it just, there's so many good reasons for it. It's good for Nat. It's hopefully helpful to all of you. So. Nancy, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thanks. You mentioned in the this presentation that like maps or something like that was a possibility. You also said you can't do fundraising. Can you do ad sales?
Ooh.
I am not sure. I think we'd have to talk about that a little further. But we're willing to have that conversation and work through those issues for sure.
Thank you.
And Nat, you do have, am I right? You have GPS certification?
I have some training in kind of GIS and kind of
GIS.
taking spatial analysis stuff.
Right. So, so mapping projects are really interesting to think about. I know Woodford's Corner had someone with similar credentials to Nat do a whole parking analysis for Woodford's Corner and actually map it in relation to the businesses. And then they were able to develop a whole communications plan surrounding where the parking is available in that neighborhood. So all sorts of possibilities. Great. Okay. One last check for questions or comments. I'm looking at the screen. Okay, Deb.
I think it might be helpful for us to get an idea as to what types of projects might fall in line with a 2 to 6 week time period. And I love, just the fact that you mentioned, Ann, about, parking, that sort of thing. We've done that to death, but you can never do it too often, seriously. So, but stuff like that may sort of spur someone on to maybe tackle something that we hadn't thought about.
That's great. And Nat did put up that one slide, Deb. Did you see it that had some project ideas?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're thinking you want more additional ideas. I just want to make sure I understand your, okay.
I'll have another look at it, but it's always nice to hear about more.
Absolutely. Gets the juices flowing. Great. We'll make sure we share Nat's slides with you after too, okay? Great. Thanks, Nat.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all the feedback. And I think Joanna has those 2
great
questions.
Woohoo. There should be a poll up, right? Looks like about half of you have participated, so we'll see if we can get some more responses. It's helpful to all of us, including Nat, as we build this process out. And I know that Gardner and Skowhegan have fellows, and so you can't theoretically apply for this, but thanks for participating.
I think we've got 8 responses, maybe minus those ineligible communities and staff. That might be
about right.
So okay. I can close the poll, and it looks like everyone said the RFP. Well, I'll share the results. So there's no one that doesn't feel like the process is going to work well for them. So that's great. And thank you for taking the time to offer us feedback on it. And it looks like most folks either will or might submit a project. So that's good for us to be able to anticipate the volume. And yeah, Nat's available to help everyone work through this once he releases the RFP in January.
Great, thanks, Joanna. Did you have another poll, or were these the 2?
Only one.
That's it, 2-part.
Great, 2-part, 1 poll, 2-part. Thank you. Great. So we have 20 minutes left, and I just want to open it up to see if there's any things people want to share, want to put on the table, want to discuss. I know some people, any of you in the Working Communities Challenge, any of you part of a proposal? Nancy, you are? You want to tell us who's involved and what it's about?
Well, we're looking at, we've got a group that's been working here, a cooperative effort with my office, Southern Heuristic Development Corporation, which is a private nonprofit economic development agency, the local chamber, and some other organizations. We've had an ongoing effort looking to attract people to the area for remote working and new businesses and that sort of thing. So it seemed like this would fit well. And we've actually even had some interest from the East Grand area to participate in our application. So
Great.
Yeah, we're looking forward to submitting a proposal.
Super. Other topics people want to throw out, check in about? Everybody doing okay in their downtowns?
We just posted I'm sorry, go ahead, Christina. Sorry.
Sorry, Deb. I was just curious if others are feeling like their board have, I don't know, I'm feeling like my board is, with the exception of like 2 people, I'm feeling like my board is kind of checked out a little bit in the last couple of months. And I think it might have to do with maybe the lack of running events where most of the time I get volunteer efforts from them. But like, is anyone else feeling like they're just pulling the ship themselves? Because right now I'm feeling that way and it's kind of frustrating to me. So.
Yep, same here. We've got a big board, so I would say we've got still about 11 pretty engaged board members, but the rest, yeah, it's we've been going through difficulties with them.
Yeah,
and so we have an executive committee meeting next week, so we're discussing that.
And Melissa and I were talking about her board. So this may be a pattern. Anybody else having this besides Christina, Michael?
No, I am too.
Rob, yep. Yeah.
I think we've kind of had a shakedown about the popcorn eaters. And this next year, I'm really looking forward to the new members on our board and really emphasis on a working board as opposed to a board that just asks a bunch of questions and makes things a little more difficult to get done. I want my board to come forward and say, how can I help? Instead of, well, have you thought of this? And have you thought of that? And have you thought of that? It's just not, it's such it's a different way of coming together. And I'm really feeling positive about 2021 being different. And I think everybody was suffering mentally. I don't think a single soul hasn't suffered mentally this year. So if my board has been checked out or negative, I'm not going to really throw it on them personally. It's really the whole year too.
Yeah.
I think what's keeping our board, relatively active is the amount of activity that's going on in the community. And so many board members sit on so many different committees, it all comes back and then to the BDA and how we can get involved and be part of things. So we're probably stepping outside our box a little bit. And then the town is really, works so well with us. They want us to start concentrating on different areas, not just downtown, because they see the success of what we do. And I'm not willing to go down that road, certainly not at this point, not unless they give me another $100,000 to get me new office space and so I can hire out somebody specifically to work on another area. But the success of the downtown cannot be duplicated in what I consider to be a strictly commercial area that has no historic significance or anything like that. You can't move what works downtown out to Cook's Corner. So it's not, if it's going to happen, it's not going to be me who does it.
Right.
Because, we have a role to play, but I don't think it should be a major one.
Right.
So all sorts of things to discuss, and that keeps them engaged. And we just finished off a very successful Lights of Hope program. We just posted a video called Lights of Hope. So check it out. It's on our Facebook. It's lots of fun. So we're out there filming with masks.
Yeah, fun. It was a great film. Any other topics? Christina, this is one of those topics I'm going to chew on for a while because I feel like obviously you're not the only organization that's feeling this kind of lack of engagement. And I think your point about, is it connected to having not in events where they normally are engaged, is a really interesting one. Certainly you pulled a lot of volunteers in for your brew bags to get that out the door. That was what, September?
well, I think that might be the case that people think happened, but it was like myself and 3 others. So
Okay.
realistically, I don't know. We just have a lot of big projects going on, and I want people to get excited about the $50,000 Maine Community Foundation grant that we have to implement entrepreneurial ecosystems projects. But people are just like, eh. And maybe it's, oh, Christina will take care of it. But like, I'm getting tired of that sentiment. So.
Okay. Well, like I said, this is one of those topics that I'll be chewing on for a few days and seeing. I don't know that I'm going to fix it, but how can I help? So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, this is Cara. Christina, I just had a thought that maybe, and I don't know what you're allowed to do, what the parameters are around the money in the Maine Community Foundation project, but are you able to do some sort of video around explaining? I mean, the title of what you just said is like people glaze over, I think. Like to us, it's super exciting because we know what it means, but is there a way to break that up and to get that message to people in a way through a short, like 20-second video or something that would just explain to people what it means, and then maybe there might be some further excitement and further engagement. I don't know. We've had a lot of luck with videos, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Good idea.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll ponder that. I often wonder if they're reading director's reports and other things that I send them, and perhaps it's the form of a video, but then I have to create the video, which I'm like, do I really have to go to that level of time to do that when they should just be paying attention?
Oh, no, what I meant was part of that when I said the parameters of the grant, are you allowed to use like maybe $1,000 of it to hire somebody to create a video, or even 2,000, you'd get a really nice video, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds explaining like what it could mean for your community. And that could go out on social media and be like a total wide campaign. And this is the other thing too, is I found we've had a lot of success with videos in our organization. And it's not just for this one thing that Christina was just talking about. I just mean it in general, like, and getting people to sort of understand the breadth of our work. Because just like Christina said, a lot of people have no idea, like we just did a downtown gift guide. Nobody knows that that took 15 hours of work to do. They just scroll it and move on, you know? So, but
Yeah.
I don't know. So.
It's good to ponder.
So I just have one passing thought comment. I think somewhat the disengagement is a consequence of all these virtual meetings that we are part of now. I think people, and not that there's a solution to it necessarily, but I think we lose so much in the little side conversations that happen at our board meetings, either before the meeting, after the meeting. There's a lot of sort of stuff that you can't define that happens when a group of people get together in person versus in the virtual world, which we all do now. And so I do think it's just sort of somewhat a natural consequence. People are distracted sitting in their homes. They aren't paying as close attention because they aren't sitting within the group. So not that that's I think that's a reason. One of the things I've tried to do with my board meetings is open them up about 10 or 15 minutes before the meeting actually starts and get people to come on and just talk to each other. Because we don't tend to communicate with each other. We don't meet face to face anymore. So just catch up with what's going on in each other. So it's fun. We have 15 minutes of just completely, a conversation about what's happening in each other's lives as opposed to board issues. So it's just a thought, just to get people to reconnect. It's just that loss of connection leads to people disengaging, I think. So hopefully the vaccines are going to take care of it all soon.
That's a great idea, Scott. I've been to other meetings and presentations where they've opened it up early. And at first, like back in March, it was like kind of awkward. You were like, okay, now I'm staring at all these screens. But then I think as humans, we start to crave that informal conversation that you're talking about. And that's a really good way to do it with your board. I love that idea. I think we're going to do that for our next advisory council meeting. It's a great idea.
All right.
Because we're missing that too, right?
Absolutely.
Our advisory council usually chit chats, before, during, after, and have those informal conversations. You're absolutely right. Bill, were you going to say something? Yes, Bill.
Yeah, this is a great discussion, and thank you all for participating. But what I hear is problems with your board meetings in a very difficult time. And I think, and if you're going to do a lot on leadership training, one of the big things that I've always worried about is how to run a meeting. So few people have had experience, and all of a sudden they're in a position where they have to run meetings. And there are some rules there that need to be taken care of. For instance, when you're running a meeting, particularly a board meeting, you want to make sure that everybody at that table is asked to say something during the course of a meeting. You've got to draw them all into your discussions. We used to have a number of different rules. One of my favorites, which Jane created, was if you've got an idea about something you think we ought to be doing, you better be prepared to do it and maybe lead the charge. Otherwise, don't bring it up. Don't waste everybody's time. There are a whole bunch of rules that you learn by running meetings for as long as I have, over 60 years. But those rules would save so much time and make our board meetings so much more productive if we worked on learning those rules. The person who runs that meeting, your board chair, has got to be aware of the fact that it's a tough time and people don't know what to do, and you've got to make them talk and create the ideas. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Bill. There's definitely part of what you're saying that I always try to do if I'm running an advisory council meeting, which is making sure that everybody participates either formally or informally. Absolutely, that's a great point. Other questions, comments, topics you want to throw out? We have about 5 minutes left.
I have a question, hearing your discussion about board meetings. Are any of you doing a year-end fundraising drive or a Christmas fundraising drive at this time of year? And what are you finding? I see a couple of heads saying yes. Christine, what's the response like?
To be honest, we actually haven't even sent it out yet. I'm behind schedule since I'm reduced staff this year, but it's at the printer and it will be sent out by the holidays. And so, but we've already seen checks flow in from a handful of supporters without even any solicitation.
Right.
Because they know it happens every year. Because you've built that, right? Deb.
We framed ours around Lights of Hope. And Lights of Hope being keep the lights on in our stores downtown and let us raise enough funds to really light up downtown. And so far we've cleared about 44,000 on it. So we were extremely surprised by the generosity. In fact, the president of Bowdoin College just wrote a personal check for $5,000 to the effort.
Wow.
Totally out of the blue. We had no idea that it was going to be as successful as it was, and you know, but
really
as
heartwarming.
Yeah, it was very good, and people could see exactly where that money was going. It went on those trees, and we felt we needed something concrete to show them, in addition to raising funds so we could keep operating.
Congratulations, Deb. That's a great story. And that's a function of the board. You know, they don't like it, but it gets them involved. And so it shouldn't be let go at this time of year, especially this year. I think we receive in this house more requests for funds than we ever have. So it's time to do that if you haven't been. So.
And Amanda said in the chat that we're just about to send out our 2nd annual appeal, which is great in Bath. That's great.
We try to send it out quite a bit earlier than that at this time because we know that so many other ones are going out, and we needed to raise that money for the lights back in October and November.
Right.
So,
Right. That's great. Great. Any other last topics or comments to throw out to the group? Okay. So I hope everybody goes into the holidays and gets to take a little bit of a break of some sort and really gets to re-energize, because I think every single one of you deserve it. It's been a very, very hard year for anyone involved in downtown revitalizations and small businesses and nonprofits. Anyway, so I wish you all very, very good break of some sort, and we will, see you in January with our newsletter and our optional call, and we'll be getting out the schedule for assessments for our main streets. It's going to be a little easier because it's virtual. You don't have to have snow days. I think, Michael, you had to use your snow days last year, I felt like, or something. I felt like Augusta had an assessment, then it had a snow day, then anyway. So we don't have to do that virtually. We can just hold them. So we'll be sending out that for everybody. So thank you all. Get in touch with any of us if you need anything, if you're interested in the leadership program, have any more feedback for Nat, and Joanna and I and our advisory council members that are on the call are all here to help. So thank you, everybody.
Happy holidays.
See ya.
Stay well.
Bye, everyone. Take care.